Clive Barker Podcast audio commentaries.
Thanks to your generous donations to our Kickstarter funding campaign,
Clive Barker Podcast presents Fundraiser 8, Sell. Welcome. This is episode 315 of the Clive Barker Podcast. Good afternoon, Jose.
Hey, Ryan. How are you doing today? Good morning.
Good morning. So we held off on this for almost a year, waiting for this thing to come out on internet for international audiences. And it doesn't seem like it's going to. I mean, of course, backtracking, what we're talking about is we're doing the audio commentary for the Hulu version of Books of Blood. So for people who are unfortunately unable to watch this, sorry, I would pause it and figure out a way to watch it if you can, or if not, just save it for later.
Yeah. Yes. So I think the Hulu platform. It's international, right? I think it's international, but somehow, stuff that's available in the U.S. may not be available in other countries.
I think Hulu's only in like North America.
Okay, yeah. All right. Let me see.
That's what I've been hearing when we talked about it on Occupy Midian. Is we don't even have Hulu. It's like, well, maybe that stuff will go somewhere else then.
Oh, there is Hulu in Canada. I just looked that up. So, wait, no, there isn't. Hulu is not officially available in Canada. But you know what? If you have a VPN, you can probably access Hulu from the U.S. as if you were in the U.S. So, there's all sorts of VPNs out there that you can subscribe and get access to. And then you click a button, and you're in the U.S. and you can subscribe to Hulu and watch all this stuff in there in Netflix. So that's an option to consider.
Yeah, well, and we had agreed to do this in 2021, waiting for the Blu-ray to come out, or this to become more widely available than maybe just the U.S.
Right,
but it hasn't happened. I don't know why, and I don't know if this is normal for Hulu stuff or just this one. Can you watch like The Handmaid's Tale in other countries? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But I know for a fact that if you have that VPN, you can. And the problem, that's the problem with these streaming platforms, right? I mean, they want people to subscribe to them so that their content is gated with a subscription, just like Disney Plus. And
then what if they go away? I mean, right? I mean, Hulu is owned by Disney. So anytime they could just absorb Hulu and make it Disney Plus, and then stuff that was on there might just disappear. They might cherry pick the things they want to keep.
Well, there is that possibility, but I think Hulu is kind of here to stay, just like Netflix. I mean, they're pretty strong, very content-filled platforms, and they're growing every year, right? I mean, Netflix, for example, is growing a lot every year. Movie theaters are still kind of suffering from the effects of the pandemic, even though, people are starting to go back into the theaters. Actually, I was going to watch a movie in the theater recently. I was going to go watch that Summer of Soul documentary from Questlove that made it to the theaters. But then last night we were just like, my wife is kind of sick right now. My throat might be a little raspy today, so I'll try to not cough. But we ended up getting a Hulu trial again, and we watched it on our bedroom on a big TV. So you can't beat that comfort and that immediacy of just being able to say, well, do you want to go to the theater and go out to eat and then buy overpriced popcorn and pay the price and be in a room full of people? Or do you just want to, be on your pajamas and have some snacks and sit on your comfy couch with your nice TV and sound system?
Which is what Scarlett Johansson is suing about right now, right? Because in fact, I haven't even watched that movie because it's like $30 if you want to rent it on Disney Plus or whatever.
Yeah, you got to pay the Pied Piper to watch
which makes sense if you got a whole family watching it. I kind of get it, but if you're just watching it by yourself, that's not a good deal.
Yeah, I think she's suing because she was a executive producer of the movie, and so her contract said that she would get a percentage of the box office profits, and apparently Disney she made at least $2 million out of that. But the thing is that she wanted it to be in theaters for a long time before being on streaming, and Disney just actually released on both places at the same time, theaters and Disney Plus. Yeah. And she claims that damaged the box office thing. So she's not the only one.
It probably is true. I would think so. I mean, if people can, like you said, just kind of sit at home and watch it, they'll probably choose to do that. It does feel weird to go to the theater. I still haven't done it yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are very happy to return to the theater. I mean, our buddies from Little Spark Films, Joe and Catalina. Joe was tweeting yesterday he was watching the Suicide Squad movie, and he was like, I'm standing outside the theater, and I'm so freaking happy. Yeah. And it's like, it's that thing, It's like you haven't been there for so long. And some people out there really, really love going to the theater. It was their thing,
Well, we're definitely going to be doing that for Candyman.
Yes, which is coming out in less than 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I might try to drag somebody with me. I don't know who, but I want to go see it.
Actually, it's like 2 weeks, right? Because today is the 8th as we record this, and it comes out on the 23rd. So that's 15 days.
Wow.
I'm stoked. I'm stoked.
I'll probably go see it on the Friday night so that we can talk about it on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. Yeah, that would be terrific. And in regards to what you were saying, that you'd like to know if these things will ever come out in a physical format. I think one of the few things that has done that was probably like Stranger Things from Netflix.
Yeah, but that's an anomaly because they don't do that with their other stuff. I mean, it's not like you can go buy Daredevil box set or The Punisher or whatever.
It just became so famous and so much of part of the culture, the pop culture, that they actually released it with a lot of merchandise. But most of that stuff is gated because they want people to subscribe to the platform to have access to that.
Yeah, it's like, you want to watch Stranger Things again? Well, it's a good thing you keep on paying your $13 a month. Or what is it now, 15 or 16? Netflix is the most expensive out of all of them. Yeah.
That Disney Plus is really nice. I had that with Hulu and ESPN Plus, and it was a really good bundle. But then, of course, eventually I was like, I'm not watching this stuff that regularly. So that's the problem. Another problem with streaming platforms is if you have a la carte a lot of them, then I don't know.
You're eventually paying more than if you had a cable subscription.
Yeah, not just that, but like you really have to watch stuff there. Because if you just focus on one of them, like Netflix, which I tend to go more towards, then you're not watching Hulu, and then you realize that you're paying like, a monthly bill for something that you haven't really watched last month. And you're like, then what's the point of having that every month? I'm just, The
nice thing about the Amazon one is you don't feel bad because you're doing it for the free shipping anyway. So that's the movies are just a bonus. But someday they may separate that out, and then you'll have to make a decision, do I really want to keep this?
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, I haven't really been watching that much TV lately. I don't know why. I've been listening more to music. This is going to sound like this is really going to date me. But sometimes I spend the evenings just listening to the show's music on the radio or music from my vinyl records. And just doing something else. I'm not a guy who watches a lot of hours of TV, but it's great that Hulu is, having these projects with Clive, the Hellraiser TV show and the Books of Blood. So I'm stoked about doing the commentary track for this movie. So the Spyglass Entertainment and David Bruckner's film reboot of Clive Barker's Hellraiser is on Hulu. Yeah, that's the movie. Yeah. Okay.
And then who's doing the HBO TV series?
Okay, so the HBO Hellraiser. So I was also wrong. I apologize for that. Let's do a correction there. So the Hulu Hellraiser movie is from David Bruckner, Michael Dougherty, and Mark Verheiden. Okay. Yeah, they're writing and directing HBO's Hellraiser series.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and David Gordon Green from the Halloween reboot is also working on that. He will direct the pilot for the
So it sounds
HBO
like
Hellraiser.
HBO, most everything they do is big budget, high production value.
Yeah, I think I have a little bit more excitement for the HBO Hellraiser series because of what you just said.
Yeah.
And because of the talent attached to that, than the Hulu, because I don't know. But, they're both exciting projects.
And then the Hulu, it's going to be just like this, stuck in the United States, and nobody else can watch it. And that's, Clive Barker, probably half of his fans are from England.
Well, yeah, but HBO Max is also the same thing, right?
Yeah, well, HBO... No, I don't think so. I think people... A lot of HBO stuff makes its way all over the world.
You're right. Yes, I just looked it up. HBO Max is launching in 39 territories in Latin America and the Caribbean. And let's see, in Europe, it's not there yet.
Well, and so getting back to this Books of Blood, I hope that everybody listening to this has a way to watch this or has figured out a way to watch this movie. But if you haven't, just hang on to it. We're going to spoil it because we're going to talk about the movie as it goes along. So just, I guess save this for later if you want to.
No, yeah, there'll definitely be spoilers here.
Yeah. I mean, we held off on it for like 9 months, right? Or 10 months since it came out.
Yeah, this came out in October 6th of last year. So as we record this, it's August 8th. So we 10 months. That's right. Yeah.
So we'll I guess let's get it started. I'm paused right at the very beginning, at the 0 seconds mark.
Yeah. Set up your Hulu app and click the Clive Barker's Book of Blood. And let's go ahead and I'll do the countdown for this one. So 3, 2, 1, play.
Okay.
All right. In 1984, the Books of Blood were published. They shocked and frightened millions of people around the world. In a recent interview with this, Clive said that he was...
this book dares to open these pages again. Those pages.
Yeah. Clive Barker was about 28 or 29 when he wrote the Books of Blood, and he was eating cold beans out of a can. He was kind of broke.
Yeah, because it was he was doing it while they were doing the Dog Company theater stuff.
Yeah. Wasn't it last time Doug Bradley was on the podcast, he said something about Clive was walking around with some shopping bags full of papers, and then he's like, hey, I got some stories here for you to read. And it ended up being some of the stories of Books of Blood. All right, we see a man in a rocking chair.
Yeah, and now we're in this weird like library with this guy walking around putting books on shelves.
Yeah,
this is kind of a weird, spooky opening, and you don't really understand. Like, wait, when you're a Clive Barker fan, having read the Books of Blood so many times, and it opens with this, you're going, what is this? This is not something I recognize from the Books of Blood. Who's this guy?
Right. Yeah. So they created some kind of bookend stories for the actual bookend stories of the Books of Blood. And
it turns out this guy's really not that important to the thread of the film.
I like that this is a little bit of a prequel to On Jerusalem Street, which is the bookend story at the end of the Books of Blood.
Yeah.
It
would be. I suppose if this guy were in the story, in the short story, then he would be like tipping off Wybird, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's weird. The guys that they use to replace Wybird are not. We talked about this before. Are not our favorite.
Yeah.
And there's one of them now.
Did he have a knife in his hand?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. That's a great bookstore, by the way.
Yeah, it's cool.
Oh, he has a panic room. Oh, nope.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is a real...
or panic rooms don't work.
Yep. I wonder if this is a real bookstore. I'm sure it is a real bookstore.
Yeah. There's like
actually looking up the locations.
There's one small bit of dialogue from this thug, loan shark dude, that is supposed to make us more endeared towards him, where he talks about how his dreams of the future of retiring, and he wants to read Shakespeare and stuff like that. But that's it's a really tiny amount of characterization
Oh, yikes.
I know.
So I found some information that Books of Blood was shot in Halifax and Hants counties in the fall of 2019 and was supported through the Nova Scotia Film and Television Production Incentive Fund.
So where's Halifax County?
Canada, I think.
Oh. Do they have counties in Canada?
I guess so. It says Nova Scotia Film and Television Production Incentive Fund, so I'm guessing that's where it is. It's in Nova Scotia.
Oh.
All right. So this is where they try to set us up the story that there's this rare book, right? This rare book that's worth millions. And yeah, and I like the fact that they say that there's this place that's like Chernobyl, it's more like a psychic Chernobyl, right?
Yeah.
Like
yeah, it sort of sets this in a little bit of a fantasy world, because you're like, whoa, this is not like any experience anyone ever has in the United States. I mean, this is not our world. You don't have an entire neighborhood that's like a Wild West ghost town.
Yeah, that would completely change the world, right? That would be a complete like people would be like, oh, dead people are real and ghosts are real, and I mean, dead people are real, ghosts are real.
Yeah.
The supernatural is real. That would completely change the paradigm. And I love this opening. Special effects on this are amazing.
Yeah. It's sort of this visceral. It looks like Frank's skin and blood and stuff.
Books of Blood. And a Fuzzy Door production. Seth MacFarlane's production company.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hate that show.
Jenna. Yeah.
Right. So I like Jenna all the way up until we discover that, we see the scene of her talking her boyfriend into committing suicide. Because it's
spoilers. Yeah.
Well, we just said we were going to spoil
the
movie.
Yeah.
So anyway, at that point, she is so malicious and evil. But the whole rest of the movie, she's not. She's sympathetic.
Right. I think that they obscure what happened to her because they keep saying, what happened in college was a terrible thing, and you're drawn to believe that she might have been sexually assaulted in the college or something. That's what set her off in terms of having these issues of mental health issues. But then at the end, like you said, you realize no, she's really really messed up, and she feels like she needs punishment for what she did, which kind of explains the ending there. But
and she's like sitting cozy in her bed talking to him on the phone. And he's like about to jump off a building
in her rich parents' home.
Yeah, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna. We don't have to be together. We. It's the message that's important." And
what are you talking about?
Oh, that's her. That's what she says to him.
Oh yeah. You're talking about when she's on the phone.
But it seems so malicious because it feels like she's just tricking him, and that she had no intention of actually killing herself.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So this house is amazing. It's just in the middle of nowhere, right?
Yeah.
As a former realtor, how would you pitch this house? Like a vacation place?
We don't have places like that in Fairbanks.
Yeah. But how would you pitch this? It's like
I don't
quiet.
It's
a quiet place, perfect for taking a vacation or something like that. Because it really is in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be a realtor anymore.
Okay, there you go. It's got a great view of the ocean there.
Yeah.
So she has what's called misophonia. So that is some people have this triggering reaction to noises like chewing, swallowing, sharp kids crying, sharp noises like that. They make them really anxious and they can't stand that stuff. That's why she just had that moment there where everybody's eating breakfast and she kind of gets a little upset about the noises of chewing.
Yeah, and they really do a good job sort of setting the audience on edge, hearing it the way she hears it, with all this, these noises being amplified. And
the parents are a bit callous, right? I mean, they're, at least the mother. I don't know if that guy's supposed to be her biological father, but the mother is
like he's a stepdad, right? Because he's like, well, whatever you say, you're the one who's in charge, but he's nice to the stepdaughter, and he's nice to the wife, and he doesn't seem to want to be involved in any conflict.
Oh my God! Now her parents are upstairs, and you can see the house is completely made of glass, so you can see them like get on the bed and be like, get over here, and he's grabbing her, and she's like, oh no, she's shaking her hands like downstairs immediately from them, and she's putting on her headphones to block out the noise, which I'm sure they're noise canceling headphones. But her mother is kind of callous, and she's like, I don't know, I don't get my daughter anymore, and if she stopped taking her meds, and it's like if she doesn't get any better, I'm done. They're gonna come get her tomorrow. So we're gonna
send her to the farm, back to the farm.
Back to the farm, right? Yes. Which you understand that it's probably a clinic or some sort of place where they'll keep unwanted kids. And here she is with a big golden scissors walking into her parents' room as they sleep. And yet at first you're thinking, well, what the hell's going to happen here? She really dislikes her parents. She's in a kind of a fight or flight mode. And wow, they keep a lot of money in their cupboard there.
Yeah.
They got like $10,000 bill packs.
Yeah. Yeah, like they're ready to run to another country at any moment.
What do your parents do, Jenna?
Yeah.
Well, she ran away from home.
Yeah,
so
did
apparently,
she take a car? We don't know how she got this far, because it seemed like she was out in the middle of nowhere.
I don't think she took a car. She might have taken... Oh, yeah, you're right. Why did she take a bus to Los Angeles? And how did she get to this station? There's a lot of moments like this in the movie where it's like people are in one place and all of a sudden they just start running and it cuts to them running and arriving at another place. And you're like, how far are these places from each other?
Yeah. And this creepy guy that we're sort of led to believe is maybe he's just in her mind, and she doesn't know if he's, a hallucination or if he's real.
Yeah, this starts a very contrived, in my opinion, a very contrived sense of anxiety in the movie. Yeah. Because that guy keeps following her. And at any point he could have just said her name and said, hey, I'm so-and-so, and
right.
We'll get to that in the end.
Yeah, because it's they're trying, they want to preserve this illusion that, this false thing that he's a figment of her imagination, or that he's some sort of supernatural thing, and
this mystery.
Yeah.
And she's in the bus, and she's drawing drawings of people eating and opening their mouths and doing things, because the guy behind her is eating potato chips.
Yeah.
And it's really setting her off, and she's putting on her headphones, which feels like if you are that disturbed by this stuff, you just have your headphones on most of the time anyway.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. So she, like you said, so we're led to believe that that house is in California somehow, because she can go take a bus to Los Angeles from wherever she is.
Right.
But they don't explain how she ended up going from that house in the middle of nowhere in the oceanside cliff. So if she drove to the bus station, wouldn't she be able to keep driving?
Where the heck is she? Because she says at one point that she didn't want to be on the bus for a day and a half anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take a day and a half to drive within the state of California, even if you're on a bus, right?
That's a good catch. Yeah, so she's probably in another state somewhere.
But it would have to be a state that's on the ocean.
True.
So
your guess is as good as mine.
Maybe she was in Washington or Oregon?
Oh, yeah, it could be. Yeah. They never say that, do they? I don't think they ever say.
Because from the south, you're all the way to Mexico. It's strange. And
how did that guy know exactly what stop she was going to go out, right? So that's the thing that sets us off thinking, is that in her mind or something?
Right, because it feels like he just sort of appears like Candyman, you know?
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the little tie-in to the other, to the jerk characters, you know?
The
bookies or whatever, loan sharks.
The killer thieves were trying to get the Book of Blood.
Yeah. So he gave him a tip so that he could be let off the hook for the money he owes, and they're like, no, we're just going to keep the tip for ourselves and kill you.
So instead of Airbnb, she's going to a website called Go and Sleep. One place to stay.
Yeah.
So it's the Brannon Braga called it in an interview, the Airbnb from hell.
Yeah, right.
Which at first seems like a really comfortable place and nice people. And they're like, hey, you know, here's a bedroom and here you can watch some TV here. Do you want something to eat?
And it's interesting because, I mean, these people are, this lady, she tells her philosophy from the start. And if you listen to every word that she says is relating to her philosophy on how she treats people, you know, and how she sees the world. And it's this metaphor of gardening and removing weeds and stuff like that.
Yep. So here's another person at the same Go and Sleep location.
Yeah. But the cracks start to show in them because she gets kind of like short and angry and swears at her husband and stuff during moments of violence and
oh sure, yeah.
They never ask these people if this is what you want. They just take them. Like this guy, that he's got his hand on his shoulder. That guy's not going to last very long.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a get out kind of feeling.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this family is so nice, but there's a really dark secret.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's in her bedroom.
I still haven't seen Us.
Oh, you should.
Yeah.
Oh, get your feet off the freaking bed, girl.
I know. Take your shoes off first.
Jesus. I really hate it when people in movies get on the bed with their shoes on.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's gross.
It also annoys me in also the same way as like when people get out of their car and they don't close the car door.
Oh, yeah.
That's like, because that's not what people do in real life, It feels weird to just get out of a car and just, start walking and leave the door open.
There's a lot of things in TV shows and movies that we have kind of become blind to. For example, when there's a movie scene inside a car, you never notice that the headrests are removed so we can see the people better.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't like squish their hair up against the back of their head and make them look weird.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Most movies, you pay attention to that. You'll see the headrests on the seats in the car removed.
That's a safety problem. You need those.
Sure, yeah. But you never notice that stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
I didn't think of that.
Oops, here's a little cockroach.
Yeah, and so we're led to believe that's another red herring, right? Because we're being led to believe that she's hallucinating that stuff,
right?
Because she turns around and the bug is gone, but
then she has a dream.
Yeah, and in real life, those bugs are there because they have a cockroach problem because of what's going on in the house.
Right, but the way that they're going to set up a dream sequence after this, it still makes us believe because she's frazzled mentally that this is all a hallucination and she's like imagining this stuff.
Well, and her dream is a mix of dream stuff and reality at the same time. So we got to pick through it and try to figure out which things she's seeing are real and which ones are dream. Yeah.
I think around 2017, 2018, 2019, there was kind of a glut of horror movies where they're in the walls. There's something in the walls.
Yeah.
And this movie also has that kind of trope that they're inside the walls.
Yeah, but they're not like undead. They're just these horrible, poor people that had their eyes and ears taken out and they're just on IVs. And the weird thing about it is, like, some people get to lie down in the floors so they can just lie down. But there's a bunch of them in the walls that have to stand up their whole lives.
I'm sure they wouldn't have to stand up for long. Because when you see one of those, they look all desiccated and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, well, how is she taking care of them, making them stand up for their whole lives, and then I guess they just would collapse on the floor.
I would think they're probably they have bindings on them or something.
Oh, maybe they're probably being held up kind of like manacles or whatever.
I haven't seen this in a while, so I'm just rewatching it now again since last year. But
there's a scene where she goes down to the bottom of the stairs and opens a panel and kind of goes into the walls, and then as she's running down this corridor, all these people are standing on either side of her and grabbing at her.
And here's a little red herring as well. The lady is saying that, oh yeah, my husband, he doubled the size of this place. We've made a lot of expansions on this house. Oh, there's another cockroach coming from the floor. A little bit of a roach problem. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a lie. Of course, he would never say we should just gas him, because then they'd be gassing all the people in the floors and the walls.
Sure. This is just them lying.
Family.
Yeah. So it's a cool looking house, though, from the outside.
Yeah,
almost looks
nice.
A little church-like.
And we learn by the end of the movie that house is on Tollington Place, but it's like the outskirts. It's like the in between place, right? Between the desolate hellscape of Tollington Place and the real world.
Not a very good school district.
Yeah,
right close to the spiritual psychic Chernobyl neighborhood, which has cars upturned and flipped over on the road and stuff. It's like, what?
And like these dead haunted house trees and stuff everywhere.
Yeah. It's like Halloween land.
Yeah.
So this guy also seems like he's got some, mental health issues, and it's like,
and in the dream, when she's lying there, he comes into her room with his shirt off and starts kissing her while she's lying. It's pretty creepy, and then somebody puts a bag over his head and drags him out, and you think, oh, that was real. So this character's kind of messed up.
Right. He's going to disappear at one point, like you said, and then we'll find him again.
He wanted her to invite him into her room, and she didn't, and so then he just kind of pushes his way in anyway.
So how they got together to do this, in an interview, Brannon Braga said that he connected with Clive through a mutual friend in 2017, and that's when they started working on this, and there were some meetings that they did, and they took notes, and eventually, at some point in 2018, there was an article that came out on bleedingcool.com, which I don't think that article exists anymore. They might have jumped the gun on that one, right?
Oh, yeah.
Did I use that jump the gun properly?
Yes. Yeah, it's jump the shark that you don't want to... Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they jumped the gun and they released something. And it was really weird for us, right? Because I remember we were like, I think Lori, Marco Bichet of Simon Benford fans...
Yeah.
let us know that there was that article announcing that Seth MacFarlane, Brannon Braga, and Clive Barker were going to release a Books of Blood adaptation on Hulu.
Yeah, and so we looked at the article, and it had no sources, and it was from a weird site, the original one, and it was like a one-line thing from somebody, and we thought, well, this is fake. Where there's no sources, there's no nothing. Where did this come from?
That's right. And then Rob made an article about that, and he made an article saying, hey, apparently this is going to be a thing, and we're not sure if this is real, but he made the article. And then a few months later, I think, there was another article that Rob did, which is Books of Blood TV series is real.
Yeah.
Because Clive Barker, I think, did a revelatory interview with Phil and Sarah Stokes, and that's where he revealed that he had been working with Brannon Braga.
Yeah.
And he said, what I'm trying to do is, at the very least, match and in some cases surpass the intensity of the original Books of Blood. Yeah. Some of those stories have a nod and a wink to another kind of narrative. I mean, New Murders in the Rue Morgue is an example, obviously a nod to Poe, but then there's Rawhead Rex, which is a straight-off monster story, and I want to revisit those kinds of stories. I want to do a new monster story, for instance, something that is fresh and for a modern audience. So that's what he said at the time.
And that was... this dream where she's lying there and she's kind of shaking and she's got tears in her eyes and she's clenching her hands and her hands are shaking. You realize on a second, or for me, this is the third viewing now, that she was given a tea that's sort of introducing her to. They're sort of slowly drugging her. So I think that she's sort of paralyzed in the middle of the night here. So most of what we see is real and not dreams.
Yeah, at first you think this might be a sleep paralysis situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think this is entirely a dream.
Out of her room, that was her mom, right? So obviously her mom's not there. But I think this part is really happening. Because they put a bag over his head, and the husband gets out a tape measure and starts measuring her body length.
Huh. That might have been that part might have been real. I don't know about the guy kissing her, because there's that guy following her. He's standing right outside the window looking at her. He kind of looks like the guy from Phantasm.
Right. So bit. I think that part is fake, because he wouldn't be. If he was standing out there, they would have done something about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part is the dream, but I think this is real.
I think so. Even though it's very confusing. So they're taking the measurements.
Yeah.
Let's see. What nook of the house are we going to put her in?
Yeah.
So more stuff from Clive Barker's 33rd Revelatory interview when he talked about this. He was like, so he was talking about working with Brannon Braga, and he says, I should add, I think, because this is tasty, the series has been expanded from the stories in the Books of Blood with stories that have been developed by me along the style of the Books of Blood stories, because it's 30 years since I wrote the Books of Blood, and my mind has certainly not remained empty of those kinds of ideas. So there are, I think, about 30 narratives which I have developed, which you could call Books of Blood stories, as narrative outlines. But I haven't yet turned them into stories. We will probably turn at least some of those into episodes for the television series.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest shames of this movie, is that they got forced into being an anthology movie instead of a TV series. And it's not even really an anthology. It's really just a one solid story with interconnected, like Pulp Fiction, I guess. Sure,
yeah. But they were affected by the pandemic. They were. I think that somehow this got affected by the pandemic.
Well, and there was an interview also with a writer that said that another part of it is that a producer that was really on board with the TV series left Hulu, and it's an old story that seems to happen to Clive a lot.
Yeah,
left Hulu in the middle of production, and then the new person wasn't as excited about this, and let's just finish up what you're doing and we'll make it a movie.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's probably the main reason why they just
just like Midnight Meat Train, right? I mean, it's like, no, I don't care about this. I want to push my own project, and we're not going to put that out in theaters.
Right. That's a shame.
Yeah.
Because apparently Clive had 30 outlines of stories if this continued to be a TV series, and who knows what was in there.
Yeah, and this being a movie and being forced into the thing that it is now probably is killing its chances for continuing this, whatever it is. If it's going to be another movie, a series of movies or a TV series, probably those chances are dashed now.
Here's another movie thing that people don't really realize much, but there's the guy outside the cafe.
Yeah.
It's when someone's in a cafe and they're talking, everybody else is silent. Just like in Friends and stuff,
right.
Like when they're or in Seinfeld.
Because it's on a movie, it would be hard to move your head or direct your attention to the person you're supposed to be listening to.
Yeah, they're all just silently mumbling to each other like they're having conversations, but you can't hear anything.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Which is funny whenever I see a scene in a restaurant. So she's trying to leave by the back door of the cafe, and the guy's following her.
Yeah, and so they just told her, "Hey, that's employees only. You can't go in there." And it's like, why did they let him go in there after she did?
Well, yeah, he's chasing her. So
yeah,
and see, she ran out of the cafe, and she immediately runs into the gate here. So again, we have. Is it right down the corner? Did the other guy not see her?
Well, and that also introduces another problem of them being on this desolate, Chernobyl hellscape, right? And then, but then there's a coffee shop in walking distance where everybody's fine and happy and normal.
I guess it only starts after a few blocks.
Yeah.
This is still the good part,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a nice place, though. I'm sure that's Nova Scotia.
Well, and is Tollington Place, is it just a cul-de-sac and that's the only hellscape? You'd think people would have just renovated and,
It didn't seem like it was just, because if you remember the ending, it's blocks and blocks of that area that are just completely abandoned.
Yeah.
It's like a Skid Row of sorts, except there's no homeless people there. And here she's, again, foreshadowing, talking about the different weeds and what they do, the different herbs.
And it's unfortunate that she has to pull the weeds because they're plants too, but you got to protect the garden. And it's really ominous. Once you've seen this already, it's really ominous. But when we didn't understand what was going on, when you watched this movie the first time, this is just kind of, all right, whatever, lady.
Yeah, she's revealed to be a nurse. She was a nurse, and then she stopped being a nurse for undisclosed reasons, which will become clear.
Yeah.
And then she met her husband. Yeah, husband. Yeah. But this lady is really creepy, and I really like her in this thing. Her name is Frida Fo Shen. She plays Ellie in this movie. And the husband is, let's see, what's the name of the husband's actor? Nicholas Campbell is Sam. So they're a really interesting couple. I would have loved to see more of them. Apparently in one of the interviews it said that Clive based them on some sort of couple in England that was caught kidnapping people, but I don't know. They didn't really offer much detail about that, so I couldn't look it up.
There's a scene of the husband going into the shed with a chainsaw, and you hear him like running the chainsaw. And then later she hides in that shed, and she sees a person in there all like chopped up. And it's a guy that he kind of looks like the guy that's been following her, but he's not, because they put that guy into the front seat. So it's a little strange. Like, is that just some other random person that showed up at one time that we didn't see? No,
that's the guy. That's the guy who was trying to find the Book of Blood. The guy who slashed the throat of the book guy in the beginning. Yeah, you'll see it.
Oh.
Yeah, we'll get there. Yeah. That's how they connect these stories, but it's going to be later.
Oh,
yeah.
It's that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so, yeah, because it's the timeline is a little like back and forth, and that's a little hard to follow because you see him dead before you see him go in there.
Yeah, these stories are happening simultaneously, but then they just focus in the movie is divided in 3 different stories, right? 3 different sections. It's going to go into the middle section, and which is about the Book of Blood story, and then the last section is about continuing the story of the guys who are trying to find the Book of Blood.
Well, so the Simon part, most of it takes place in the 90s. So that's another part that makes it a little tough to thread everything together.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the actual part that opens the Books of Blood short story anthology. It's the story of Simon McNeill and Mary, what's her name? Ionescu?
It's Florescu in the book,
Florescu.
and Florensky in this one.
Right. Yeah, they had to change it for no reason. They always had to change something. Yeah. But yeah, so that is the actual part. Like this stuff, if you never read the Books of Blood, none of this stuff is in the Books of Blood.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is like some other story that Clive developed with Brannon Braga, and they kind of bookend the movie with another bookend story. But yeah, well, the middle section is really just because it's a really short story. The Book of Blood opening for the Books of Blood.
Oh yeah, it's just a few pages.
Yeah, it's just meant to set up this very brilliant idea that the stories you're about to read in this anthology are actually written on someone who is the Book of Blood. They're the stories of the dead that got engraved onto his skin because the dead wanted to tell their stories.
Well, and 12 years ago, there was a movie made of those bookend stories, the Book of Blood. which is pretty well faithful. I mean, in most respects, it's beat for beat the same story as those bookend stories.
I loved it. Yeah, it was 2006, I think.
2009.
9. Okay.
And they don't. It doesn't have the sort of polish of this movie, but it's more faithful.
I liked it because it was very small scaled and very claustrophobic. And Doug Bradley's in that movie as a cameo,
and
as a
Simon
sort of
Bamford.
And Simon Bamford, he plays a moving man, I think.
Yeah, and right, and there's none of that familiarity here. But this is a well-made movie, and I think amongst the fan community, the main complaints that we see from people is that it's not what they were expecting when they go into it, because they wanted to see Books of Blood stories that were getting adapted.
Right. And then there was the Madefire motion comic, which was another adaptation developed by Seraphin and Madefire of the Book of Blood story, in which the guy, Simon McNeil, was almost like kind of a magician character stuff. And I don't know. It's not available anymore from Madefire, so that's a shame.
Yeah, we were just before we started recording, we were just talking about that, and I, when we talked about it, I went and grabbed my iPad, and it's the Madefire app doesn't even work anymore. It doesn't. It just says, "Hey, sorry, this doesn't work."
Yeah, I was looking at that last night when I was preparing for this commentary track, and I was like, "Let's see if Madefire comic is still there," and I was like, "Nope, it's gone. That's a shame."
Yeah, even their website is gone. And
Here's the part where she's listening to noises, scratching noises coming from the walls.
And she's going to discover. She discovers in through the cracks she can see somebody, and fingers, and then she discovers. I don't know if that's right now or in a little while, but she'll discover all these little panels that you can kind of push in and they pop back out, and you can open so that apparently so they can feed people, or I don't know. But it just makes you think they don't spend a lot of effort hiding this stuff. So it's like they don't think that that people staying here are going to need to be fooled for very long, because they're going to get them.
I guess one way or another.
Yeah.
I have to say, great work on the panels though, because they're really hard to see that they're there until she actually opens them. It's almost like she's trying to open the lament configuration.
Well, and would a normal person have heard all the little noises that she hears, or is it only because she's really sensitive?
Good point. Maybe that's it. Yeah, there's a little panel to change the IV that she just discovered. Yeah.
What I think about with this is, like, whose job is it to go change all these diapers?
Ellie and Sam, I guess.
Yeah, God. So they have to go into the walls and change all these people's diapers, and the smell must be awful.
Well, yeah. There's no countering that. If you want to keep them alive.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would tip people off maybe more than the skittering sound of the cockroaches.
I mean, personally, I've never changed a diaper because I don't have kids, but you have a kid, so you would know. But they're not adult diapers, so there's that.
Right.
It's in the wall.
And I
didn't
have to go into the walls and the floorboards to do that.
Anyway, so she just discovered this old person. I don't know why they gave her that makeup where her face is all gaunt and full of like wrinkles. Because it makes it seem like they're a really old person.
But they're just desiccated.
Yeah, it's almost like a zombie makeup in a way, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting how they use Gavin's phone to try, to distract her from all the weird stuff going on in the walls.
Yeah, so at this point, Gavin's already been caught.
Yeah.
He's already been taken. She's been grabbed. He's trying to grab her hair from the panel. The person who's inside the wall is just reaching out.
And another thing, an interesting choice to use this story, because most of the people in this story didn't die, right? They just got sort of hobbled and kept in the house. So,
bam! She just hit that lady in the face.
Yeah, but the Books of Blood stories are supposed to be stories told from the point of view of dead people. And the main character of this story, Jenna, didn't die, right? I mean, she's still alive at the end of it. So how could she be telling her Books of Blood story?
Well, in the beginning, we see Jenna's name written on Simon McNeil's skin, right?
Right.
I don't think the people they put in their walls would live for long, to be honest.
Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. In reality, but what they're telling us is that she's like a really good nurse and good at taking care of people. And
yeah, but eventually, I think
we're supposed to believe that these people can live a long time like this.
Well, I think that this is like a story being told of Jenna, but Jenna's already dead when we're seeing this story.
Well, and right. That could be. I mean, maybe you're right. We don't know how long that.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you though. I mean, it's true that the way that this movie is set up.
Are these people being propped up?
Yeah, it looks like it. Because you see that they're reaching out for her, but they're staying stuck to the wall. So they're propped up. Your muscles would atrophy and stuff, so you clearly would have to be propped up on the wall.
So they've got web e-commerce that sort of creates a paper trail for all of the people that they've done this to.
Let's not get into that because clearly that would be a problem. But everything would be a problem. It would
be hard to put it together that all these people that end up missing go to live at their house or go to stay at their house.
I mean, for example, she hit this lady in the face with a brass lamp.
Yeah.
Really hard. That would either break her jaw or break some teeth. And, you see blood on her face and all that stuff. And now it's been a few minutes and they put her in the kitchen and she wiped her face and she's fine. There's no bruises on her face.
She just has a red mark on her face now.
Yeah. I mean, it needed to be a little more bruised. Definitely. I agree with that part. But clearly it's not. I don't know. I think this would have been better if they had just made a pilot. It might have been due to that. I don't know. But since this was originally meant to be a TV show, this would have been a great episode by itself, Jenna's story. And then the pilot could have been Simon McNeil's story. That would have been great too. Yeah. It seemed like the third part of it, almost like an afterthought. It seems like that third part is not the best part of the movie. And I don't know if that was just a way of putting everything together. So I don't know.
We don't care about those characters. We never got any time to get to know them, and we don't. Those two loan shark guys, and we don't really know who they are. You know, they get like one little line of dialogue to try to make us sympathize with them. Like, you know, I want to go read Shakespeare, and the other guy is like, oh, my mother was so nice, and she's telling me that I need to come find her in the afterlife.
The third part is there, I think, mostly just to add some gore to the movie.
Yeah. I think
that might be unfair assessment from my part, but I think that's what it is because there's really not much development, not a lot of revelation or interesting things.
I think it's also because this was supposed to be a TV series, and then they got the word, hey, no, you can make a movie, and now all of a sudden they got to rewrite everything and weave a couple of the stories together into one movie. Because probably this was supposed to be, you know, they're supposed to be 1 hour episodes.
So this is the part where she's explaining how they set this up, and one of her kids was the first herb in the garden because they wanted to leave them, and she's a very psychotic mother, I guess, and she didn't want anybody to leave the family, and so she took out their eyes and tongues.
Yeah, so her kid and her grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And but the husband resisted or whatever, like, you know, her son-in-law. And so
talk about a nuclear family.
So they turned him into a weed, I guess. They killed him.
Uh-huh. So she makes these medications out of the herbs that she builds in the garden.
Yeah.
And there's Gavin.
And she starts him off in the tea, and then she paralyzes him.
So she's like, well, we're going to stick some stuff in you and we're going to cut your eyes out.
Jeez. Yeah, so this injection, why does she inject under her eye? It seems like it's just there to freak us out.
Yeah, it's a trope. It's, trauma to the eye. It's always been a trope in certain movies. But yeah, she's like paralyzed, and it's almost like Get Out when the guy's sitting on the couch after eating the tea, and then he's about to go into the sunken place, and this is kind of reminds me of that a little bit.
Yeah,
and it's like, and Sam is talking about how the just got to take care of the roaches because they nibble away at everything. It's like being stuck in a wall.
Don't tell her that.
Yeah.
What is that, like a melon baller that she's got in her hand there?
Probably.
Oh God.
Well, no, it's not. It's a scalpel and some a scoopy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Someone's at the door.
Yeah. Yeah, and this guy that we've seen throughout the entire movie up to this point gets dispatched. It's a little bit reminds me of The Shining, right? It's like, oh, I'm finally here to rescue you, and whack, he gets hit with an axe.
Yeah, Sam takes care of it.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, have you seen this girl? I've been following her to this area, and she already left.
Yeah. Oh, I've been stalking her, and I didn't see her leave. So I don't think that's right.
Yeah. And the lady is like, yeah, okay, well, come on in. And then she sticks her head out the door, and then
he makes no apology or isn't cagey at all about talking about how he's been stalking her, ever since his son died.
Yep. It's like, well, just wait here. I'm going to bring you a nice cup of tea.
Yeah. They
put a lot of makeup on this guy to make him look really tired. There's a lot of dark makeup around his eyes and even on his cheeks.
Right, because he's been up crying and grieving.
Yeah. And she looks at him like, come on, you got to take care of this guy. She just gives him the nod, and Sam's like, okay.
Yeah, there's when some of the cracks start to show in their friendly facade, she gets really impatient and bossy with her husband.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love the fact that Ellie has this sweet psychopathic kind of demeanor, because she's like, well, you're going to be here with us forever, and you're not going to have any more cruelties of life or whatever. Yeah, because you're going to stick her in the wall, cut her eyes out and tongue, and just make her, go to sleep while her body slowly wastes away. And it's like, yeah, I guess in that sense you're relieved from life, but you're also thrown into a living hell.
Yeah. What is Sam going to hit him with?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out soon.
A machete or something sharp, right? Because he immediately bleeds out when he hits the ground.
Mm-hmm. So he's talking about Tony and says the records show he was on the phone with Jenna. And this is where we start hearing like, there's more to Jenna than we thought, like something happened in college and Tony was the son, and what's going on? And here she's doing the wiggle.
Yeah.
The medication's wearing off and she's trying to escape.
Yeah. She can only move. Yeah. She can't move her arms or legs. She can just move her torso. Like she's moving like a cat.
Bam. There we go. It looked like a machete, but I don't think it's a machete because otherwise it looks more like a baton. Yeah. But there's a lot of spilling blood and spray all over the place. And their house is set up in such a way that it just makes it look like such a quaint little Midwestern looking house, right? It's got the little bare cookie jars in the counter, and it's got that I don't know what you call this kind of furniture, but it's almost like Amish furniture in a way.
And it's really broken up, divided up into a bunch of little, compartments. It's not an open floor plan at all.
Sure. Which kind of goes along with the idea that there were different parts being added to the house.
Yeah, those cabinets look like they're all... Oh, yeah, well, he said he made the kitchen cabinets, and they totally look like they're homemade.
Yeah, because they got that rough wooden, painted wood kind of look.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks like it's wearing off. She's crawling out of the window.
Yeah, now she has 2 arms. She started out with no arms and then 1, and now she can use 2 arms.
Yeah, and now she can stand up and walk.
Yeah.
Oh, not really, but close.
Yeah, she's getting there.
So we're thinking, okay, this is where she's going to get some help, and we're going to find out what's going on with that dude following her. Instead, she runs into the shed in the backyard.
Yeah, okay, so that's an interesting point. So what she's seeing is the loan shark dude here in the shed in a minute.
I wouldn't really call him a loan shark. It's more like it's more like see, that's the guy right there.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's all dismembered and stuff.
Well, yeah, because he goes to that bookstore guy and because he owes them money for somebody.
Oh, I see. That's why you call. Okay, cool. Yeah, and at the same time, they're trying to do their job of stealing the Book of Blood. So.
Well, I don't think that's their job. I think they get that tip and they want it for themselves to get out of this, loan shark gangster life.
Right, correct. Yeah. Yes, okay.
Because otherwise they would have used that tip, and that guy thought they were going to use that tip to keep him alive.
Right.
Because here's something even more valuable than what I owe you. But they're like, no, we're going to kill you and take that for ourselves.
Oh, and here she got into the car. And she got into the car. Instead of running out of the car when she hears them come out of the house, she just crawled back into the back seat.
Yeah.
While they're putting the body of the guy. I don't know. What was his name? Let me check that. The guy they just killed. Oh, it's just supposed to be Tony's father.
Steve and somebody. I think Steve is the other guy, though.
Right.
This guy. I don't know what this guy's name is. The father.
Yeah. Well, he's Tony's father. Let's call him that. And they're putting him in the car, and they're saying, we're going to take him to the quarry.
That's weird that she would say, oh, she's going nowhere. I mean, the drug has already worn off. How could she think that?
And it's amazing that they didn't go to check on her.
Yeah.
Right? But anyway, we'll take that. And so, so this is the guy's car. The guy they just killed. Okay.
Yeah. So they're gonna drive it off a cliff in the quarry.
Right. That's another thing that movies do, which I think is ridiculous, is like someone hides in the back seat and then the person gets into the car and they don't notice that there's a passenger in the back seat.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about you, but when I go into a car, I see inside the car through the windows.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you're pulling out, I mean, you're looking back out of the window of your car, so you see the back seat.
I guess all you could say about it is that they're preoccupied. This is a pretty big, heavy thing that they're having to deal with.
It's one of those things that movies do that, again, we were like, I guess he's preoccupied, but it's like, in real life, you would know if someone was in your back seat. Yeah. You would see them.
Yeah.
What's that giant lump under a blanket? It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, they're unfortunately Jenna hit herself in the car that's going to go down the quarry.
Yeah, and she doesn't figure it out in time to get out.
Yeah. Stick some rocks in there.
If she got out right now, she might have a fighting chance. She could.
I don't know.
It's better than sitting in the car. I mean, once she hears the gas running, she knows that they're not doing something good.
Well, she would still have to deal with Sam and Ellie.
Yeah, right, but that's better than dealing with this.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. If someone was putting rocks in a car and you hear the gas, definitely you should jump out.
Yeah, jump out and try to fight them or make a run for it or something.
Right. Well, that's just how they wrote the story, I guess. Yeah. They had to find a way to get her to escape them without actually letting them know she had escaped.
I don't think that that's a bad writing choice. I just think it's an weird thing for this character. I mean, it's just a quirk, I guess.
So we're going into Miles' story. Yeah. And okay, I guess in this they changed the name from Simon McNeil to Miles.
What? I thought he was still Simon.
I don't know. I saw Miles written there. And so we see a naked guy inside an empty cinder block.
Oh, Miles is her son.
Oh, that's right. Miles. Yeah, the boy. Okay. again, this is my second time watching the movie.
Right.
So
Yeah. Right, and there was a thing with her having a dead son in the 2009 movie, right? And I think that's kind of where this came from, because that was not in the Books of Blood stories.
No, it was not. No.
Yeah.
So this video has some stuff that is very indicative of a movie instead of being an actual raw footage.
Yeah.
Because there are cuts and the camera flips around and stuff, and that would mean the guy holding the camera would be flipping the camera around and stuff. So the guy is stretching his arms inside an empty room with white walls. And then all of a sudden you hear these like flashes of noise and rah, rah, and then the lights go out, and then the camera flips around. And then once it comes back, it's the guy's on the ground. The walls are written in blood all over the place.
Well, and that's a part that they don't explain too, is that because when there's a scene where he's drunk and he's explaining to Mary, how he conned her. Mm-hmm. And there's this big long explanation, I hired somebody to cut the power, and I use this invisible ink that only shows up when you spray it with ammonia, and then I've got this ammonia canister in the wall that reveals all the writing. But when the writing gets revealed, it's written in blood. It's not some kind of invisible ink. So
that's the tape that Mary Florensky gets.
Yeah.
So you would assume that was produced by
right,
Simon
but he
McNeil.
does the exact same thing with her in the room, and he explains how he does it.
Well, that's what he comes up with in a controlled environment. This might have been just done by him as a way of showing, hey, I can do this stuff,
Yeah,
that could have been just him setting it up.
What he does later, not the tape.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I thought you were talking about the tape we just saw.
No, the tape, they could have produced that, but in this controlled environment, this invisible ink that he paints on the walls turns into its blood. How is that?
Well, it's not blood. It's just red. I mean, they never say it's blood. And at that point, I think Mary Florensky is so involved into this that she doesn't really test that thing out.
Well, it looks like blood. It looks like dripping blood on the walls. It doesn't look like invisible ink.
Right. Well, when he sprays ammonia on it, I mean, it's like you can't really analyze it that deep, because once you do, it wouldn't make any sense, right?
His con of her is a con of the audience too, and in some respects, I don't like that.
Right. I get that. Yeah. Sure.
Because there are some cheats.
That's the embellishment that they do for a movie, which is not there in the book. In the book, all that happens is Simon McNeil hides a little lead under his tongue, and then he would scratch things on the wall with it. So it's not written in blood, it's not written in dripping blood or whatever. And they do that for the movie because it's more dramatic. It's more like visual.
And they wanted to kick it up a notch from the book.
And also, they introduced this factor of the story of little Miles, which was Mary Florensky's son who died of, I assume, cancer, as a way of making her so eager to believe in the supernatural that her son is still living on somewhere, that it blinds her to the skepticism that she was supposed to have.
Wow, we're only like halfway through the movie already. It feels like we're near the end.
So she's going into her office in a college campus, and she walks in, and there's a guy sitting, introducing himself to her.
Yeah, and he's a smooth talking scam artist for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and at this point, Mary Florensky, I think she's introduced as a character who is very skeptic, as she's kind of a debunker of this stuff, right?
Right, because her son died, and people try to take advantage of her, and she's like, "I'm going to get them. I'm going to get their whole industry." Yeah,
it's not fun. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw stuff like that. But there's books around that become really popular with people. It's like, oh, the little boy who went to heaven, and he came back to tell the story, and people really believe that crap. People. oh, this little girl in Ukraine had a vision of like the Virgin Mary, and she wrote a book, and it's translated into 39 languages, and it's like people believe that stuff.
Yeah,
it's just, I don't know. People really want to believe in something sometimes to make themselves feel better. And yeah, it can make someone really throw away their critical sense out the window. The brain is a powerful denial thing, you know. And so he's telling her, I've seen you on TV. You're no fun. You know, you're debunking people who talk about the spirit world. And it's like, who are you trying to convince? Yourself? And she's like, I'm going to call the campus police. And he's trying to seduce her. He's trying to, you know, charm her into saying, you know, give me a chance. I can prove this is real. And then he uses that thing that Miles sent me here. Yeah. And Miles is her son.
Right. And a part of the con here is that everything he learned about Miles, even stuff that their last conversation while Miles was alive, who the ex-husband wasn't there for, he met up with the ex-husband and he told him all this stuff.
Right. Yeah, we find that out later.
Yeah.
But any normal skeptic, once a fraud or someone you believe is a fraud will bring up your dead son, they would just be asking to get a glass thrown at their face and pushed out the door.
Yeah.
And somehow that she's just so involved into that love of her son that apparently did not happen, and she just became like, you know, interested in what he had to say, and that's how he got the hook.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she wants to destroy him, she said, you know, because...
I think that's a little unrealistic, though. I mean, I appreciate more the actual original Books of Blood story in that sense, because she did not just believe him at his word. She didn't get any sort of like sentimentality about.
No, she was like a ghost hunter sort of a thing, right?
Yeah, she was like, let's do a controlled environment, let's connect him to things, let's have a camera going, let's have all this stuff.
Yeah, and let's see how it works. Let's see what happens.
And she never believes him. She's actually trying to disprove him when the Books of Blood, you know, when the spirits of the dead come and take Simon McNeil for real, because their anger is towards him. But she never believed him. She was trying to actually, you know, disprove that thing. And it's during the test that things go awry.
Yeah.
And in this case, she actually not only starts believing him, but she gets conned by him. And she eventually creates a foundation with money interest people to say that we're going to create what does she say? A visual imaging foundation, imaging with dead people. It's like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. How did you get so far with this, being a skeptic, believing a con man?
Yeah.
And this is the first controlled environment situation, which would have been immediately debunked, right?
Yeah.
Because she would be like, it smells like pee in here. Oh, what is this?
Yeah.
Why are the walls wet?
Yeah.
And why is there ammonia on the walls?
Yeah. And who's the...
Who's the what?
Well, and there's some guy's going to be at the breaker panel cutting the power.
Yeah. And he's talking about the dead. Also, when you cut the power, it doesn't flicker like that. No. But again, this is just for dramatic purposes, right?
Yeah.
So she's in there with some students. And all of a sudden, everything is black inside that room. Unnaturally black, I would say.
Yeah.
Because there's red light, which I assume would be like the emergency lights or something. Yeah. And that light would bleed into the other room.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, we're going to see a nice set of ass prints being put on that glass.
And Simon somehow had access to that room to get in there and
boom.
Paint all those names on the walls. You know, see, doesn't that look like... I mean, that doesn't look like just some kind of invisible ink that you can trigger with ammonia.
Well, but if you spray something with ammonia, then that would bleed out. You know, that would actually cause the invisible ink to bleed. There's a indicator.
It's all like it's got black in it, like, you know, congealed scabbing and stuff.
Oh yeah, I do agree with that stuff. Yeah, that is true. That that would be weird. Yes.
Yeah. So that's a joke on the audience.
Yeah, they're kind of tricking you into believing this, just like it's supposed to trick her. But yeah. it would be just red, and it wouldn't be like
right.
chunky.
And if they had done that, then I would have gone. Then it would have been more like, oh, I didn't see that coming.
Right.
But this time they fooled us with stuff that's not possible.
Mm-hmm. I mean.
I know. They made it look like it's impossible to, for that to not be real.
I think, Ryan, sometimes you take the literal approach to movies, and I agree with you that as soon as they would see this stuff happen, they would take samples of what's on the walls and they would test them out and be like, "This is just invisible ink with some indicator that turns it red," and they would be like, "This is clearly a hoax," but. This is a movie, so that thing doesn't happen. They don't write that into the story. They just keep going.
Well, everybody does that with movies.
Right.
It's me.
Yeah. But so I do agree in terms of verisimilitude and what would really happen in reality, that they skip a few steps. And they just have you believe that, oh, yeah, this happened, and then everybody believed them.
Yeah.
Again, I think that they try to imply that this woman is kind of blinded by her love of her son and her desire to know that her son's soul is still residing somewhere. Yeah. But being a skeptic would also be part of her that fights that idea. And I think that part that fights that idea is put aside really quickly.
Yeah, and even if she was starting to believe, she would still want to test all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the whole purpose of what she was doing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what I was saying earlier, that I don't think that she would just fall into this thing so quickly and go to the point of inviting financial interests to create this speak to the dead kind of company,
Yeah.
that would be crazy. So in the original Books of Blood story, that does not happen. And she is actually still a skeptic, and she's trying to actually actively disprove Simon when Simon is taken by the dead.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I got to say, the houses they got for this movie, the locations are really beautiful.
Yeah. I think also really well cast movie. All around, except for maybe Bennett and Steve, right? The loan shark guys.
Yeah. I don't buy that that guy's really like a loan shark. He looks too nice and too well groomed. Yul Vasquez plays Bennett.
Right. I mean, they're set up in the beginning as loan sharks, but they act like assassins.
Yes, they act like assassins, right? Because they're going there to get money. If they don't get money, they're going to kill them.
Well, maybe you're right. Maybe they aren't loan sharks, right? Maybe they're the guys that get called if it's too late to pay somebody back.
Yeah, that's what I think. They're enforcers, right? They're strong arms.
They're like, no, it's too late for money. Now he wants blood.
Yeah. Which I'm not sure if that really, really happens unless we're talking about millions of dollars. Because if you kill that guy, then he's never going to pay you back.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's better to just scare him off and, say, well, then you got to pay me whatever you have, and we'll keep doing this.
I mean, typically what you hear about is like, I'm going to break your leg or break your fingers or something, and then you still have to pay us back.
I'm going to go after your wife or your kid.
Yeah.
So this is how they start getting seduced and falling in love, and she's all of a sudden she's really into helping her get in touch with her dead son.
Yeah.
And this is kind of a little bit of a warped mythology that he's starting to recite here about the living's relationship with the dead.
This is another part of it that I think that they messed up. Right, kind of like similar to what I was saying about the bloody writing in the room. this is another thing where he's describing he's describing the world of the dead as if he were an expert, right? This is the part that we're supposed to believe, but then you find out later that he's a fraud and he doesn't know what he's talking about. But what he says in the course in the mythology of this movie is true. So I don't like that.
Well, I would imagine that he's done his homework. You know, at least to be a good fraud, you have to do your homework. The best fraudsters are the ones who say 90% truth and 10% lies, right?
Yeah, I guess that could be. But I mean, if he's had, how would anybody know what he's talking about? You know, unless they were real, were real mediums or had access to the land of the dead.
Well, we don't know if he's had that conversation with actual mediums and stuff, right?
Well,
I mean, he probably had.
Yeah.
To make it look real, he would have to go and do his homework and connect with other people who do that stuff, psychics and stuff like that. So, in some ways, and he would probably have read some books and did some stuff and know exactly, like I said, the good fraudsters are the ones who bring a lot of truth into it, and then the lie is just that one little bit that tips people over into believing them.
Yeah.
Or the other way around. The truth is what leads people to believe them.
I suppose. I guess that doesn't mean that everything he says is made up or a lie, but
yeah.
This also is kind of like, you're really gonna you're gonna talk about her dead son and then move in on her.
That's what predators do with vulnerable people, right? Yeah. They see the crack in the shell, they push it open a little bit, and they stick their finger in there.
Yeah,
that's how they do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. That's something they seem to do whenever they adapt the Book of Blood, and they try to make it so Simon McNeil seduces Mary Florescu. They do that in the 2009 movie. They did it in this movie, and she in her thoughts in the book, in the story, she was attracted to him, but that's as far as it got. Right. Yeah. Because he's a mysterious character, and he's a charmer. Like any good fraudster, he's also a good charmer, right? Yeah. I mean, that's how they get people to believe them and stuff. Yeah. They're charismatic, they're charming, right? But ultimately, they're manipulating people. Right. So I guess they have to have a way to show that outwardly instead of just interior monologue that you can't do really in movies without it coming out hokey. Mm-hmm. And they jump to a part in the future where she's already talking to all these like rich people. There's an Indian guy, there's a Japanese guy, and we'll have access to the best imaging power science has to offer. There's no science in this. There's literally no science in this. This is supernatural. Right. They don't show any of the kind of equipment that she's talking about, or how exactly. Her equipment is Simon. That's right. What she's proposing to them. Yeah, and her it's true. I mean, she's got no background in building machines, and now someone else is sampling Simon's equipment right now. Yeah. Right. This is crazy that he's doing this right in her house. Yes. With one of the students of the professor. Yeah. And he's drunk. And he's like, what do you know? What do you want? Yeah. You're looking at me like I shot your dog. I kind of wish that she'd been able to figure this out on her own instead of her him just drunkenly telling his whole story, of how he fooled her. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah, he would just totally blow up. Yeah, but it's like you were saying before. She just flips a switch a little too quickly from being the premier skeptic to like, hey, now I'm going to believe you. Like just right now, their dialogue's like, Simon, why are you doing this? I know you. He's like, you don't know me. You don't get a fucking clue. Yeah, it's true. She doesn't know him. Yeah. Why would she say she knows him? Yeah, because I like her. Together? I'd like her to be a little stronger, and a little more skeptical and able to work this stuff out on her own instead of him having to explain it to her. Sure. But also another part is that they're just on the verge of committing finishing their hoax, right? Yeah. Or Simon's hoax. They're on the verge of getting the money. And he's just throwing it all away. He could just wait a little longer and get the money, disappear, and be done with it. But no, here is just blowing everything up right when they're about to get the money.
Because he's afraid with all these big time investors that he's going to end up in prison.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess he rode his hoax all the way to the last stage. Yeah. And then at the last stage, he's like, well, there's no way I'm going to be able to do this. Yeah.
And here's the way Mary wants of how he there. So that's him painting, that stuff on the walls that's supposed to turn into congealed blood, later on.
Well, I can tell you it does not. Phenolphthalein is an indicator of whether or not something is acid or basic. So you drip that stuff in and it turns pink if it's a certain pH. And it does not, it's not chunky. It's just a clear liquid. Yeah. And it just, depending on what sort of invisible ink he was putting on the wall, though, that could be chunky. That could be really like a very, the pH might be a little more for the black parts.
But then if it was chunky, she would see it when she's in there investigating Simon and looking at the walls and stuff.
I'm with you on that one. Yes, absolutely. So there you go. And they just broke up and they just, So I guess he's saying, well, if I'm going to jail, you're going with me. So now what are you going to do? You're going to have to help me. I think he did it on purpose, actually, now that I think about it. He might have done it on purpose because he needed at this point for her to become his partner in crime, right? Because at this point, she's still writing this believing that what he does is true.
Except that he later on, he doesn't remember how much he told her, so he has to ask. And so it's like, here comes her dead son to the rescue. He's like, hey, bring him to us. We'll take care of it.
Yeah, which we saw earlier, right? When they slept together and they're in the bed in the middle of the night. She doesn't see it, but we see a little bald kid put his hand on her and she wakes up and she's like, oh. Yeah. And now it's she's in her son's bedroom, which is almost kept as a shrine to her son. Because nothing has been changed. The teddy bear is there. The telescope is there. The star-studded bed cover is there. And the little blackboard writes in pink, bring him to us.
Yeah. Yeah, and this... I don't want to seem overly critical because I there's a lot of great stuff in this movie, and I love the way it's shot. I love the actors, and I love a lot of the scenes. Like, I think the scenes of the dead are really kind of striking. And
very good.
When you see the expanse of all the dead that are waiting in line to write on Simon, it was like, wow, look at that. So I think there's a lot of really cool stuff to see in this movie. But, there are a few little plot holes that bug me, and I would say that about any movie, and it doesn't mean that I don't like it.
Sure, I get that. Sometimes it's things that we see almost as little flaws in the writing, like, I don't really buy that stuff right now. I don't see how the character would fall for that, or the character doesn't seem like what they are setting up for the character, that he would be like that or act like that in this shot.
Well, it's like when we were going over, except I don't like that movie, but when we were going over Hellraiser 8, right, Hellworld, and when you watch that movie a second time, which they probably never expected anyone to watch it a second time, it doesn't make any sense. The story that they set up about the people being unconscious and and him doing suggestions on
giving them instructions over a phone.
Yeah, when you watch them, there's a bunch of plot holes and things that don't make any sense, and it's like they just don't expect you to watch it. It's a throwaway movie.
That's because Hellworld is a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. This movie isn't like that, but when I see little things that, like, wait a minute, you cheated when you set up this red herring, or this thing that was supposed to fool the audience. You kind of cheated a little bit, and I don't like that as much. But it doesn't mean that I don't like the movie.
Another switch is flipped when she realizes that her dead son is actually communicating with her, and that ghosts are real, and that she sees him in his bedroom when she pulls back the covers, they don't show the kid there. They're very subtle in that.
Yeah.
But she pulls back the covers and then she starts crying and smiling, which makes it seem like the dead son is there in the bedroom looking back at her.
And there's a conversation there, with the dead and her son that she had that we're not going to see because we're going to see the whole thing unfold and we're going to learn about it as Simon does. And so now he's the one being conned.
Exactly. She's preparing things to set him up.
Yeah.
So the financiers are there. She says, "Well, you guys are going to see that thing happening tonight, and it's going to be proof that you guys can give us money, and we'll help you contact the dead, and it'll change the world."
Yeah, but of course, she doesn't really know exactly what the dead are going to do to him, and the financiers, for all we know, they could have all gotten killed, or because whatever her plans were, they don't happen. And her whole street turns into a wasteland.
Yeah, and I think Simon is uncomfortable in this scene because he's like, "Okay, well, I guess this is it." He didn't run.
Yeah. He's like, "I'm trusting you. I guess I don't. I didn't set up this room to put the writing on the walls. I don't know what's going on. I can't follow through with this. I'm just hoping that you know what you're doing."
Yes, and his face is like distrusting and confused. Like, how are we going to do this? I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And she's like whispering in his ear, "You really pissed them off, the spirits."
Yeah, and he's like, "What are you talking about? What? I don't understand."
It's like, man, this is probably going to be, but he would be exposed. He thinks he's going to be exposed. I don't know if he's going to go to jail. I don't know if any money has switched hands yet, but this is the moment, right? He's like, well,
yeah.
This is a defining moment.
And so this is a little strange. Like, how is she supposed to be showing them anything when there's just a closed door in between them and Simon?
The dead have highways, and Simon creates an opening, an exit, so to speak.
She could have at least, put a camera in there.
Yeah, this is like one of those intimate things, like to impress the financiers.
Yeah.
Oh, little rocking chair is moving.
Yeah.
And Simon is like shaking his head like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And here we go. I thought that lion plushie would start moving around.
Yeah.
Like kicking the hell out of him. Oh, look at that. The walls are moving like things are being pulled away.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And the dead are showing up. I'm not a huge fan of the dead being the twitchy kind of people with the flashing lights, but
right. Yeah, but I do like the sort of foggy, endless expanse with the dead in there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And they've got weird, yellowy, glowing eyes.
Yes. And he's being handled and floated up in the air.
Yeah, and they do this weird thing where they show them plucking all of his hairs out.
Oh, they're plucking all his eyelids out.
Yeah, eyelashes, yeah.
Yeah, eyelashes, sorry. And she's just enjoying it. She's like, "Yeah, it's fine. We don't interfere.
Yeah.
Whatever's happening in there is going to show you it's real.
Don't worry about it. It'll be fine."
Look at all that stuff showing up on his skin, all the symbols and writing. I wonder how they did that thing of having him have no eyelids. I wonder if they actually had to pluck his eyelids out or if that was digitally done.
Eyelashes.
Eyelashes. I'm sorry. Because it's really hard not to have eyelashes. It makes your eyes really dry and it's uncomfortable until they grow back. That is an amazing...
In the old Books of Blood movie, the 2009 one, they made it so old stories would disappear and new ones would get rewritten over them.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I don't know if they say that that's what's happening here.
So the other guy would always become... See, that was a bunch of blocks, and only one house has a line on.
Yeah.
That was a huge amount. That would be like half the city.
Yeah.
Like, wow. In the 2009...
Does all their power going out really mean that they were all part of the Chernobyl? I don't know.
Well, when the guys are going to be driving into that area, they drive for blocks.
Okay. Well, we'll watch out for that.
Yeah. So he's completely written over. His skin is bloody. His eyes are bleeding. His mouth is bleeding. And she's just grabbing him and being like, kissing him, saying, shh, it's okay. And his mind is going to be gone after this.
Well,
I wonder if
he kind of smiles at Bennett, right, when he comes into the house and talking about how he's going to take the book, and he kind of smiles like, "Oh, you're going to get it." So he doesn't seem like he's still suffering. Here we are, like 20, 30 years later.
I think it just becomes a vessel through which the dead will manifest themselves. So I don't even know if his mind is there anymore, if it's just like the dead smiling at him, Yeah.
This is a scene I wanted to talk about, because when I was watching this last night, I was like, what the hell are they doing? So these two assassin characters, or whatever they are, come into this coffee shop, and they're ordering coffees, and they don't have any money.
Uh-huh.
And so they intimidate him into giving them to him for free. It's like, what? They have this nice fancy car.
I think they have money. They just don't want to pay.
Yeah. So does that mean, that's what I was getting at? Are they jerks, or are they really stupid and they both left their wallet in the other?
No, I think they're jerks, because they just threaten him to put him in the trunk of his car. So they're basically threatening to kidnap him if he doesn't give them the $7.50 lattes that they just got. Yeah. Which would be, of course, reason to call the cops.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if they're assassins, you don't go around making yourself conspicuous.
Right. Exactly.
Over a
I
stupid
completely
cup
agree.
of coffee.
Exactly. Yeah. So they're movie thugs. They're like, we're really tough guys. Yeah. We drive a conspicuous sports car with racing stripes. Yeah. So here you go. See all those blocks?
Oh yeah. No, you're right.
Weird.
There are street lights, but no lights on the houses.
Yeah, and then there's actually street lights stop, and there's still a huge expanse of the city.
Oh, yeah.
So this is insane. This would be how would this happen? And everything's crumbling down. There's upturned cars and wouldn't this be crawling with people trying to find out what happened? Wouldn't this be like
this is the fantasy world part of the movie, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. 100% fantasy. Like this is crazy.
I kind of like it, though. It reminds me a little bit of like Maximilian Bacchus, right? Or Tortured Souls. That this crazy world that they set up doesn't jive with the real world that we know.
Okay, but Bacchus is a completely wonderland, a fantasy land, and this is like there's actual people having daily lives and running a coffee shop and doing their stuff, and then there's a whole.
Tortured Souls, right, is like that, right? There's a city that has politicians and stuff like that, but it's like out in the middle of a wasteland.
Yes, but it's also a fantasy land where there's monsters and mad scientists that create zombies and stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a complete fantasy world called Primordium.
Right.
Which again, it's one of those things. I think they were just meant to write that for the toys. It's not meant to be like put out as a book or be super analyzed and stuff, because it's just a blurb in the back of a toy box. It's just meant to give some context to the figure. It's not really meant to be world building in the sense of like Aberrat or Imagica does it.
Well, no, I mean, but it's still fun to analyze anyway.
He's seeing like a dead person in the back mirror, the rear view mirror.
Yeah. What's weird is that this woman, he sees her in the rearview mirror. He sees her running across the street. He sees her wandering into a church. But then when he gets to the church, he says it's his mother that led him there. And that's like, well, that didn't look like his mother. Because his mother tells him to kill himself and
obviously. I mean, this is just the psychic trap of this area, right? It devours people. It preys on their memories of the dead and leads them into destruction. That's why nobody lives there. That's why it's an empty wasteland. Yeah. But I have a hard time with this third story. I just really do have a hard time with this third segment of the movie, because I think it falls apart. It falls apart a bit. The whole stuff they're trying to show us, regular world with people and nice houses, and then all of a sudden, there's a whole giant chunk of this town that somehow is ignored, and you know, I mean, you could argue that it's like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where incredible things happen and people ignore it because they don't know how to deal with it. Yeah. But that's done in a funny way. Like, people fly around in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but British people pretend they don't see it because they don't want to have to deal with that. It's like, none of my business. I didn't see that.
And so here we have Bennett, who, you know, is later on is going to stab himself a whole bunch of times, and he wanders all the way down to the house with the characters from the other story, and it gets killed there. And from there, Jenna can walk down to a coffee shop where everything's normal.
Right. Yes. That's the point we're making here.
Yeah.
That this would change everything. This fact would change the world if all of a sudden there was half of a city that's a spiritual apocalypse. A ghost apocalypse, right? It would change everything. Things wouldn't be the same. Yeah.
And why wouldn't they go there? They should go there in the daytime. Don't go at night.
Does it ever become daytime in this part of the town?
Maybe not. And the ghost is driving his car right now.
Yes, yeah. The ghost is like, hey, this is fun.
Yeah.
He's shooting at an empty seat.
Yeah, he's a pretty good shot, though. He would have hit that driver like 4 times. Yep.
But, I mean, there are parts of the world that kind of are like this, like that town that had an underground coal mine fire that released all that carbon monoxide. And then people had to move out of that town, and now it's a ghost town. Yeah. But that's a real life reason why they had to do that, right? We know it's a super fun site.
Of course, Chernobyl.
Yes, of course, Chernobyl. But people all around the world know about Chernobyl, right? Yeah. People all around the world know about Pripyat. People go there to tour that area with special guides. And it definitely changed our understanding of nuclear energy, and it changed a lot of lives around the world. Yeah. This seems like people just got used to this, which is something people would never get used to it if it was an area that had ghost activity.
Yeah.
But here he is at, 44 Tollington Place?
Right. I think the idea is that the world wouldn't tolerate it, right? I mean, they would. You wouldn't just let this sit like this. You would have to. They would have to either bulldoze it or buy it all up and rebuild everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as you saw, it's hard to get things electrically to work there. Like their car runs out, and it's only that one house that has access to electricity. From the supernatural battery that it's connected to.
Yeah.
I like those pictures on the wall.
It's an interesting problem of, you know, where are the borders, and do the ghosts just say, well, I'm not going to go over to the coffee shop.
Right. Which is called the Spider's Web Coffee Shop. I don't know if there's any special meaning behind that.
No, I think it was because it was a web cafe.
Ah, right.
Cafe.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. So here we are going back into 44 Tollington Place, a little bedroom. Yeah. It's not changed.
Turn even the lights on, dude. Why didn't you turn on the light?
Yeah.
There's a light switch right there by the door.
Well, there's lamps all over the place, which is another one of those things they do for movies for ambience.
Yeah. Like
you go into someone's bedroom and it has like 5 lamps on. And nobody has 5 lamps in their room.
Yeah.
It's funny that the room has not changed. The posters have not aged. Nothing has aged except for Mary Florensky, who now wears a Victorian dress with like a hair bun, and she's got gray hair.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Where's the book? Where's the book? Yeah. Where's the book of blood?"
Yeah, and she's so confident that he's not going to kill her. He could have shot her a bunch of times by now.
He's trying to understand what's going on. And she says, well, they chose Simon to be the page where the dead write their stories.
Yeah, now he's smiling. He's like not suffering quite as much.
You could say that, or you could just say that he's just absent-minded smiling. He's just kind of like a vessel now. He doesn't have any will of his own.
That might be.
She's like, I'm in my happy place because I got my dead kid here.
Yeah.
Lady, where do you buy groceries?
Yeah. Well, apparently you
that's
could
one
just
of those
walk
things,
down
right?
to the normal city, right?
Yeah, I know. But it's one of those things like you were bringing up earlier. It's like, well, how does this work? How does this work? Does she
Well, and the dead probably protect her, so she doesn't have to worry about getting drawn into a church and shooting herself.
Yeah. It's just ride with it, just
Yeah.
ride with it.
Yeah.
See, that's a fresh one. Bennett right there.
Yeah.
It's a fresh scar mark, still bleeding.
Yeah, he's not dead yet, so who's telling his story?
Well, I guess the dead are calling for him.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah, and that's I don't know. I don't care for this rats thing. It's not. This is kind of it's anticlimactic. I mean, maybe is that supposed to be his biggest fear? Is rats? I mean, they never told us that.
I love that he sees rats chasing him out of the house. All of a sudden he sees rats inside his shirt, and he points his gun at the torso like he's going to shoot the rats with his gun.
Yeah.
But then he decides to stab himself instead, thinking he's stabbing the rats.
That's any better. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and he doesn't realize he was stabbing himself until he pulled his shirt up.
But see, this is another one of those parts I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Like, they drove at least a couple of miles into that area, right? Which is giant area of blocks.
Yeah.
And now he just walks away, and they cut to him getting to the house where Jenna went to. Again, this is all taking place while Jenna's story is taking place. That's why we will see him in Jenna's story dismembered in the shed.
Yeah.
But
already have.
That's why it seems like this was done afterwards, like kind of an afterthought. And they were like, we don't know how to make him like connect. Oh, let's just make him walk there.
And his name is Bennett, but he's a replacement for Wybird.
That's right. I prefer the Wybird in the Book of Blood from 2009.
I do too.
Yeah. He's more charismatic. He's like, well, I got to do what's got to be done, Let's get the Book of Blood. I got to get him. I got to flay him. And then the whole story of on Jerusalem Street is so well adapted in that movie, where he skins the guy, which is amazing. It's an amazing scene. And then he puts the skin inside a suitcase.
But I don't think in this short story, I don't think Mary was involved anymore in the second story, right? She was gone, wasn't she? Where did he steal the Book of Blood from? Or where did he the guy was just on the run, or I forget, Simon.
I'm sorry, where are you talking about? The second story?
Yeah, on Jerusalem Street. In the Book of Blood story, I don't think Mary
No, she's not.
Florescu was in that story at all.
No. Simon McNeil is just this very frail guy with his scarred skin who's actually drinking at a bar in a corner.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's meant to show that doesn't Mary die in the Books of Blood story?
I can't remember. Well, I know at least her assistant goes over the rail. And,
yeah.
He dies.
Right.
I don't remember what happened. It's funny that it's not that we haven't read those stories so many times. It's just that you get it all mixed up with with the movies and stuff.
Okay, so here's the thing. So in the story, in the Books of Blood story, from my recollection, Mary is not connected to On Jerusalem Street, postscript on Jerusalem Street story anymore. But in the Book of Blood 2009, she's also a white-haired woman in a Victorian dress who does have Simon McNeil in her house, much like this movie.
And I think didn't she hire Wybird in the movie?
Maybe,
to get him back, because she told him he could leave, but then she hired him to kill him and get his skin, or I don't know. I can't remember. It's hard to keep everything straight sometimes.
Hey, you know what? Maybe we can revisit that movie at some point and do a special Books of Blood episode in the future and talk about the animated motion comic and that movie again.
And read the stories again.
Yeah, I would love to do that. So Jenna recovered from the car being thrown in the quarry, and they said, she has a broken arm, and It seems like Tony's father kidnapped her and tried to kill her and drove himself into the quarry. I don't know how they would do that because clearly there was blunt force trauma to the back of his head and stuff. Maybe they thought that was part of the car accident.
Right.
And
there were rocks all over the gas pedal.
Right. And then they say, well, it's clear what happened. The cops say, yeah, she's not talking, but she didn't want to tell anybody about the couple that almost tried to kill her. And we don't really understand why, but then we'll understand in the end.
This part to me felt like a betrayal of her character.
Right. Yes. Yeah, this is that twist again at the end, which is like, oh, she's not a victim. She's an aggressor. The whole point of Tony's dad following her was because he wanted to make her accountable for what she did. Yeah. He was the real victim. And, I think Clive based himself on the story of, Michelle Carter, who was actually convicted of manslaughter of Conrad Roy. So Conrad Roy was 18, Michelle Carter was 17, and she was encouraging him to commit suicide through text messages and calls.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and it was known as the texting suicide case. It was a trial in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And both Carter and Roy had both been taking psychiatric medication, and apparently Roy was very much into the idea of committing suicide. And there are text messages you can read, and this is all, trigger warning for mental health, but there are messages you can read where she's talking about like, no, your parents will understand, your mom will understand. I think they're ready for you doing what you're going to do. And, you said your mom saw something on suicide on your computer, but she didn't say anything. I think she knows she'll be fine. You should go ahead and do it. And then he locked himself in a garage with a running car and was actually receiving text messages from her. And he was like, I think I'm going to get out of the car. And she's like, don't do it, you coward. You got to get this through. You got to get this done. And that's the part here that we see him saying, I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm scared. And Jenna's telling him, I thought you understood. He's like, I'm stepping off the ledge. And she's like, don't do it, you fucking coward. That's almost verbatim from their text messages.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that was a sort of a landmark case, is that could somebody, is somebody like that as guilty as if she just walked up to him and shot him with a gun? Right.
And they actually convicted her of manslaughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she is, and this kind of shows that she is guilty.
Yes, because she's telling him that we're going to do it together. She's trying to make him believe that they're both on the ledge of something, talking on the phone, and that they're going to do a suicide pact so that they can show others the way. But she's really sitting down in her bedroom drawing, and she's just convincing him. Yeah. And this is the part where we see her crying, because I think she's coming to grips with the fact that she's so messed up and that she was so evil in helping him do that. And I think she's trying to understand why she did what she did and how she feels guilty and deserves punishment.
Yeah. And so it's funny that a lot of this story is about her misymphonia, but the reality of her character is that that's the least of her problems. There's something way deeper that's much worse than that.
Yeah, I think she's coming to grips with the fact that she's broken and that she did something terrible.
Yeah.
And that she can't get rid of that. And being a movie, of course, there has to be punishment at the end, right? Every time someone does something bad. Well, they can't just regret it and move on. They have to pay for it.
Well, but this is self-imposed, right? She goes to them and says, "Okay, I'm ready. You can make me into one of your garden plants or whatever."
Yeah, I think that's her taking accountability for what she did in a messed up way.
And also the misymphonia is her not wanting sensory input from the outside world anyway. So for her, this is the perfect, perfect self-imposed. It's in a way, it's not even a punishment. It's like, this is the life I want to lead from now on.
That's the payoff to her misymphonia being set up in the movie. It's that it's going to be part of her fate, horrible fate.
And this is an interesting way to end the movie, because from here on out, there's not really the tension. from that there was in the earlier part of the movie. We've lost all that, and we're just okay. They cut to she's already had her eyes and ears taken out, and
well, they're doing that now.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that they didn't leave the house as soon as the quarry car was found. You'd assume that they would believe that Jenna would let them know where to go.
Yeah.
I guess they just had their garden to tend to, and they didn't want to leave it. So they were like, well, whatever happens, happens, and then nothing happened.
Yeah.
Stitched up eyes.
Yeah, well, and maybe also when people disappear around Tollington Place, the police are just like, well, that's Tollington Place for you.
I don't think that would be a good job if the police would just think that.
How many people go missing over there every year or whatever.
And, of course, if we want to be a little literal about this part, you can't really keep someone for a long time in a confined place. No. They would get sores, horrible sores down to the bone.
Right. It's not comfortable just because you're just because you're shutting out the outside world. Doesn't, yeah.
But you'd imagine they're drugged and they don't care. And after a while, their minds are just fried and they just become vegetables.
And here's the credits. This is me talking to myself editing. Oh, wait, I'm supposed to say when it's the end of the credits.
So I just saw Florensky say, whose story is going to be next? And this would be a great setup for a continuation.
I'm sure that was the idea.
Yeah, yep.
This isn't Nine Inch Nails, right? I think it's just somebody that sounds like them.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So here's an interview with Brannon Braga for Sci-Fi Wire. He said, was Books of Blood a cherished work you intended to adapt to film or television someday? And he says, I saw different movies being made of particular stories from the Books of Blood, the most successful of which was made by Barker, Hellraiser. Again, that's not it's not a Books of Blood story, Brannon Braga.
No, it was, but it was from that era, and it was bigger.
Yeah.
But it was
in the back of my mind, I always thought, wouldn't it be great to do an anthology series called Books of Blood based on the stories they're in and possibly make new stories? How and when did you pitch it to Clive? He says, it took a while to get for all sorts of reasons that I won't get into. The rights to just the title of Books of Blood, which Clive was very protective of. We optioned some of the stories. After we really started working together, Clive and I, in person, deciding which stories to use and creating new ones. I think we started really working in earnest maybe 3 years ago, which means this was in 2020, so 2017, that's when they started working in earnest. And it took about a year to get the script ready and a couple of years to make it. Yep. So, and then, we talked about the part where Clive was announcing that he had 30 different ideas for new stories. So, yeah. I would think that this would have been great for 2 episodes, right? Yeah. The Book of Blood story and the Jenna episode, that would have been great. I really didn't need the Lone Sharks assassin kind of story. I don't really care about that. I know you had to do something to introduce the idea of the Book of Blood.
I think you're right. I think that those assassins were put in to tie the 2 stories together and to make it a movie instead of a TV series.
Right. And Brannon Braga says, it's interesting because when we started thinking about this as a TV show, I think the only anthology out at the time was Black Mirror, which in my opinion is one of the greatest anthologies since The Twilight Zone. There weren't a lot of them, but we could smell the door opening. We had originally sold it to Hulu as an anthology show, and by the time we were actually developing it, there were more and more anthology-type shows coming out. And this is me now saying, there's Creep Show now. There's all sorts of stories like that. But by the time Hulu was ready to make a pickup decision, they suggested this is an anthological film. I realized the second they suggested it that it was actually the better version of it, because to me, these stories are exactly the right length. Like the Jenna story with Britt Robertson is about 40-plus minutes, and that just feels like it was the right length. I disagree with him on this one, but that's just me.
Yeah, that sounds like sort of political,
acceptance. Yeah.
And trying to make. What am I trying to say? Trying to make the movie publicize the movie.
I understand what you say. At the end of the interview, he does say something that kind of makes you feel that way. He says, "How does the final movie feel to you? Satisfied, considering the long and interesting journey to get there? And would you come back to direct or write more?" And he says, "This is the best version of the movie we're going to have. It was fun to make, and usually that's a good sign. Is it perfect? Are there certain things I would go back and redo if I could? Of course. But it's pretty much what we set out to make, and I'm really happy with it."
Okay. Well, I think the biggest letdown is just the fact that this is tied into Hulu, and so that only people in the United States, as far as we know, that can watch it. And there's a big Seraphim Films logo with Clive's sketch on it.
Nice.
Yeah, fuzzy door.
Yeah. So that was it. That was the Books of Blood.
Yep, and that's the end of the credits.
It was an interesting experience to watch it. I like the casting. I like the music. I like the part with the Books of Blood story. I'm not, like I said, I'm not super happy with the introduction of Miles as the dead son and how quickly Mary Florensky switches, which is something she never does in the actual original story. And then the third segment's a little weak. It falls apart in my opinion. But the Jenna story was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of messed up, but
yeah.
The ending of it is kind of messed up, like the way that she comes out of the quarry alive, but she doesn't say anything about the house with Ellie and Sam. I don't understand what her motivation was and why she does that, but they're setting it up for that ending, which it's kind of a final fate, final destiny of Jenna's character, which I guess kind of wraps things up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if somebody can go in watching this without the mistaken idea that it's going to be a direct adaptation of some Books of Blood stories, then you've got a pretty good movie that's got some problems. And I think that's kind of where it lands. There's a problem of expectation that people go in here thinking that it's going to be one thing, and then they feel betrayed because it's not what they are expecting.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair. Anyway, so at the end of that interview in Sci-Fi Wire, Brannon Braga also says, "Yeah, I would like to do Volume 2. And he says something that I don't really get. He says, "This is Volume 1, and you can see from the little prologue and epilogue in the attic with Mary and the Book of Blood whose stories will be next." So unless he's talking about some sort of names written on the skin, I don't know exactly what he's referring to as setting up new stories.
Oh, yeah, maybe if you were to pause and blow up the sections of skin, you could read the names of other stories that they were working on,
That's possible. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. Anyway, so that was the Books of Blood. That was fun, a fun experience to watch again. What story would you like to see if this had kept on being a TV show? What story would you like to see adapted in the TV show?
Well, I think, honestly, I would have liked to have seen all of them, right? Just go right from the beginning all the way to the end, start with Book of Blood and go to the Midnight Meat Train. And even though a lot of those stories have been done already, still, to see a perfectly faithful adaptation that's as long or as short as it needs to be, for an episode to be a perfect adaptation, and then maybe some of them will be short, like Down Satan, and some of them will be long, like Rawhead Rex. That's what I would have liked to see.
But that wouldn't be a TV show, right? That would be a series of movies, almost, because
it would be a TV show. Let's say if Rawhead Rex was an hour and a half, then it's a two-parter.
Okay, yeah. So, sure, I could see that. But do you think some stories would need to be adapted again? Like, for example, The Forbidden, which is already Candyman, or
yes,
the book.
Because no one's seen. I mean, Candyman is great, but no one has seen. Yeah, no one's seen a perfectly faithful adaptation of The Forbidden. It's a little different, and I think
I see your point.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
I think maybe as Clive Barker fans, we would love that, but I don't know. Maybe there's not an audience, a wide audience for that. Maybe that's just us, and.
I mean, in the translation to a TV show and become an episodic format, I think they would have to limit the time for some of the stories. So I think that would eventually mean that they would have to adapt them in a certain way. I would like to see Hell's Event, the story with the runner. I don't know if it's a marathon runner, but the runner that's running against hell, and the guy made a deal with the devil, and if that guy wins the race, then his soul is forfeit and whatever. I think that would be a really cool, because I think it would make a great episode, because it's a continuous flow. The race is going on throughout the entire story, and a lot of stuff happens, and then they can cut to, the other guys deal with the ghosts and all that stuff and the devil, and then the Parliament building and all that stuff. Hell's Event would have been a really cool story. Has kind of a funny ending. And I would love to see that. And the other one, which I think has been kind of forgotten and has never gotten a lot of attention, is that one where that girl has a car crash and she finds an asylum where the people inside the asylum are actually the people running the world with multiple country leaders.
By racing frogs.
Racing frogs and stuff like that. That is amazing. And then like in the world of today, where it seems like chaos is becoming a very defining force in government. Yeah. It seems like that would be perfect, that these weird savant kind of people would be, running the world in this kind of clinic.
Yeah.
What was that one called? I forgot the name of it.
The Books of Blood would be interesting too, because the tone is different from story to story, right? I mean, the body politic is way different from like Rawhead Rex. Or Twilight at the Towers, right? I mean, that's a strange one, with spy werewolves.
Yes, spy werewolves and Manchurian Candidate werewolves and stuff like that. Yeah, very very cool stuff. That would probably make a good movie if they didn't turn it into like a underworld kind of style action movie. That one. What was the name of that story? Where the people in the asylum are running the world? Do you remember?
Babel's Children.
Yes, that's it. Children. Thank you. Yeah, man, that would be a great TV show anthology episode. I think. Others I would like to see turned into an actual film. Like Sex, Death, and Starshine would make an amazing movie. The one where there's a zombie theater company and all this stuff, and it's got some great golden moments in there. Like, just the way, just thinking about a zombie theater company is amazing.
It also feels a little bit like a creep show, anthology episode.
Yes, that would be perfect. Perfect. Or Tales from the Crypt show.
Yeah, exactly.
Those stories never really, they try to adapt always the same. I find it strange that people get so hung up on the bookend stories of the Books of Blood. And I guess that's because they are called the Books of Blood and they named the anthology. So people put a lot of importance into that. But to me, they're not the best story in the anthology. They're just the bookends. And then there's really juicy stuff inside.
But I guess if you're planning on making a TV series and you want to open it up, you start with that. And then you think you're going to go on and do all these other stories. But then they're never able to do it. But as far as we know, we don't know. We don't know if they're going to continue this on, but I'm guessing maybe not.
So you can, but it's also, you can completely ignore the bookend stories. Mm-hmm. You can just adapt this. You can just adapt the stories. You don't have to contextualize them in the sense that this is a story written on someone's skin. You don't need that.
Well, and at this point, that's been done twice. So I think it's okay to just say, remember that thing that happened in the other movies.
For example, the Forbidden doesn't have to be, the Candyman story doesn't have to be contextualized as like written on someone's skin. Who's the dead person telling that? Babel's Children doesn't have to be. Who is writing that on Simon McNeil's skin? It's just a pretext for bookending those stories and giving some sense to the title, The Books of Blood. But it's an anthology. It can have a title. It doesn't mean we have to keep going to those bookends and adapting that story in particular because it's been done so many times. I want to see them adapt other awesome, like In the Hills, the Cities.
Oh, yeah.
When are we going to see that one being adapted into a visual medium? Can it be adapted?
Right.
That's an interesting
could
question.
you make a whole movie out of that? So that would have been a perfect candidate for a TV show.
Yeah, that would have been, yeah. And some are just too gigantic to be turned into a movie or being put in TV. Like, I think Down Satan would be really hard to adapt. That would be really hard because, one, it's very short. Second, its scope is enormous. So this guy constructs a hell on earth, and there's like gigantic swimming pools full of boiling excrement, and and then he's there's a lot of that's just mostly feelings. There's a lot of that's mostly a mood. Like he sees a fingerprint on the doorknob, and he sees a turd in the stairs, and he's trying to find the devil inside this hell on earth that he created. Yeah. But how would you translate that into a movie, right?
Reading that story again, I started to get the impression that he was seeing his own fingerprints and his own, turd on the stairs.
Oh,
and that he was the devil all along.
Right. Oh, that's an excellent point of view that you got there. Yeah, I've never thought of it. I read
that story, to prepare for Jericho Squad, and then I realized that he was so light on detail that I was going to have to just kind of, fudge it on my own.
Yeah, for the Jericho Squad RPG adventure. But this was a really fun thing to do. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you guys had fun listening to this commentary track.
And this podcast, having no beginning, will have no end. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you have subscribed. You can find the Clive Barker Podcast wherever you find audio. Show notes for this episode, as well as news and reviews, can be found at our website at www.clivebarkercast.com. The Clive Barker Podcast, or BarkerCast, is an independent editorial podcast and blog that is not affiliated with or under contract by Clive Barker or Seraphim Inc. This is a labor of love by the fans for the fans. Watch for our annual Kickstarter fundraisers to get some cool stuff, and you can buy t-shirts on our TeePublic store. Go to tpublic.com and search for BarkerCast.
Thanks for listening.